Okay, hello. Today I'm going to be swapping out the motor on my 1979 Ariens 924-036 snowblower. Currently it's got a 5 horsepower Tecumseh engine on it. It's been kind of hard to start on the cold mornings with the snow, so I decided to upgrade. And you can see here it's pretty dirty, so I'm gonna put some penetrating oil on the studs, let that work in there. Then I'll get to work on taking the motor off. I'm gonna take the belt cover off, loosen up, take the belts off, and then clean her up and put the new motor on. Okay, so after a few minutes of work, I've got the engine taken off. We can go see what the old engine looks like here. Here's the pulley. There's a couple of Allen screws in there. I've loosened those up and shot some penetrating oil in there. I'm gonna probably use some pulley remover system that I got from Harbor Freight to pull that off, because it's stuck on there pretty good. So as for the blower, you have those two belts, the drive belt and the impeller belt there, that I've removed. They're still in place. They look like they're in fairly good shape. So this one's like a little bit worn, but I may go pick up a new set of belts if I have to go out. I'm going to get this all cleaned up. You got the old interlock system here. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave that, try to hook it up to the new motor or not. That hooks up to the keys up here too. I may just cut that out. So once I get this cleaned up, I'm going to get the new motor out and try to dry fit it and see if it'll line up with the existing studs here. I've done a fairly significant amount of research on this, and it looks like the holes will line up, but the studs are going to be too short. So what I'll end up having to do is either like hammer those out or grind them off and drill them. It looks like there's some air in between, so hopefully those aren't tacked on too strongly, and I can just pop them out with a sledgehammer, and then that'll be quicker than having to drill and tap them. So I'll be back once I get the thing situated. So we've got the new engine dry fit. As suspected, the studs are too short, so we'll need to deal with that, but we have a good sense of where they're going to go, so we don't need to adjust that at all. Otherwise, it fits pretty good. Also, as suspected, the chute control is hits on the valve cover a little bit here. So I tried to bend it a little bit, but the little eye bolt actually snapped right off. So once I get the engine all squared away, I'm gonna deal with that. Probably just end up getting another eye bolt and possibly moving the where this lives up here, someplace where it'll be easier to move, or easier so it doesn't hit. But yep, things are going pretty well here. We need to go get the shaft sleeve, because this is a 3/4 inch shaft, and the old Tecumseh was a 1 inch diameter shaft. So while I was checking the studs, I realized that the friction disc here, if you can see this, is cracked. So I'm going to head and take that out and run over to the parts store and see if they have another, like a replacement, because well, while I'm in here, plus I can have the the blower kind of propped up like this. It makes it easier, and then I'll get back to the studs and whatnot. The other thing that I noticed was that this shaft here is a little bit rusted, and so it's making it really hard for the shifter to change gears. So I'm gonna just talk to the guys at the snowblower shop and see. I'm pretty sure that you're supposed to grease this. There's another shaft that it slides on up here, which is pretty well lubricated, but this is bone dry. So I'm gonna take a couple of pictures. Also, this one down here is bone dry as well. So I'm gonna ask those guys like what the best action is to do. Hopefully, they don't tell me that I need to replace this or something, but I can clean that up, you know, with a Brillo pad and knock that rust off, and then put some lubrication on there. Hopefully, for the winter, it'll be you know, good to go. Okay, back from the parts store. I picked up a new friction wheel. It's the one on the left here. You can see that it's significantly in better shape than the old one. I also picked up some white lithium grease, which was the recommended lubrication for these two shafts, this one and this one. And there's also a Zerk fitting on the outside that I'll need to squirt a couple of shots of grease in right there. We'll clean that up when we're putting the machine back together. I'm going to go ahead and get this friction disc back on and get those shafts greased up so that we can work on drilling out the studs. I don't know if you can see that in there, but these are far more than just tacked on. I gave this one a couple of really good whacks with the hammer, and it is really on there. So I'm going to go ahead and grind those studs off and drill them out, and we'll see where we're at from there. So I've ground off the studs, and I've got them pretty even. I don't know if you can really see, but I've tried to do a kind of a set in each stud location with an awl to get the drill started. I'm going to go ahead and get drilling. So I've got those holes drilled out and tapped. I'm going to go ahead and get the motor mounted up. I'm using these 5/16 coarse thread grade 8, which is 100% overkill. But the price difference between grade 8 and grade 5 is, you know, pretty small, so I figured why not. I'm going to use a standard washer and a lock washer on each. So 4 bolts, 8 washers. Let's get that motor mounted up and get moving forward here. It's a little bit later in the day now. I haven't made a ton of progress because when I was putting the pulley on the shaft, I actually broke this pulley. So I had to put out the bat signal, and I was able to come up with a new one. So now I'm gonna get back to putting this on the shaft here with the sleeve. I think I'm probably gonna have to re-drill and re-tap the holes because it looks like the engine's gonna push the pulley a little bit forward than it was before, so the belts won't line up. So I'll just have to redo that, but not a big deal. We're back for day 2 of the project to replace the motor on this Ariens snowblower. You see I've got the motor mounted up. Problem that I ran into yesterday as I was putting this back together was that there's a spring that keeps this belt tensioner tight, and it came loose while I was trying to reattach the belt. So what I need to do is to get in there. It's pretty hard to see. I got myself a super long set of pliers see if I can attach the spring back, and then I'll get the belt guide back on the motor here, and I think at that point we should be ready to go. Okay, I've got the tension spring back on. It was a little bit easier than I thought. I actually separated the bucket from the drivetrain. There's two bolts, there's this one and there's one on the other side. Got those out, and the bucket actually comes off. This part comes off, and it was a little easier to get in there with those pliers and hook up that spring. Not sure if you can see it in there. It's way down in there. So this is now tightened up. Actually removed the auger belt because, I don't know if you can see, but given the space with the engine set back, this belt tensioner is supposed to sit right on the top of this belt to keep it from popping off. So I think what I'm going to have to do is go get some washers and some longer bolts to move this forward, and then I'll be able to hook this belt back up. I don't want to start it with the belt on, because if it pops off, probably ruin the belt, and then I'll need to go get another belt. So all right, well, I'm going to put some oil in this thing and some gas, and then see if it'll start up. All right, thanks to a healthy amount of washers on both sides, I've got the belt guide more or less lined up over the pulley here. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a start and see if it's gonna go, if it's gonna work. Worst case scenario, it throws the belt and I've got to redo it, but at this point I think this belt is, you know, in okay shape, but if I need to get a new one, it won't be the end of the world. All right, so we're going to start up and see how it goes.